Ladies and gentlemen, we are live once again, coming at you from our secret undisclosed location on Newport Harbor in Newport Beach, California. Hi, I'm your somewhat semi savvy, politically minded host, Abby Kaufman, and we're here to host another little chat session. And if anyone wants to call and give us their thoughts, the number is 949 629 3820. And again, 949 and our live stream join link, as well as the phone number, can be found at our homepage, democracyradionetwork.com. And guys, I walked in so quickly this morning that would you believe I didn't really get to hear the applause. So there you go. It's always nice to have a little applause. And I always try to bring you guys in on a little upbeat note. And just as a reminder of what lays in front of us, November 2nd, what lays in front of us? Who do we have to beat? The Republicans. So what are we going to do? We're going to roll those Republicans. Here we go. Roll those Republicans. We're going to 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 roll those Republicans every time. Now, I could not have said that any better myself. Let's roll those Republicans. And why does it that they deserve to be steamrolled? Well, you remember the other day when Trump says something like, "Oh, we've reached." Actually, the Times reported that some sort of a deal or agreement or memorandum had been reached between Iran and the Trump administration. And just beneath that, it had these three words that just encapsulated Donald Trump to a T. And then, let's see, the headline says something about the memo. And then underneath it has details not disclosed. And now, isn't that just Trump? Doesn't he like announce God knows whatever it is in the most vague, amorphous terms you can imagine? And then he comes up with this. You know, uh, we all know it was a mistake at this point, but it's really coming home to roost now. Of course, the details have started to come out of that agreement, call it what you will. Even though the purported signing of tomorrow in Geneva was canceled in favor of some remote DocuSign, e-sign procedure. And guys, doesn't that, to have two countries or meet in Geneva is just the kind of like the typical negotiating strategy. Switzerland's neutral, and they host everybody so people can work out their problems. And so anyway, as the details, and keep in mind the details, I don't think they were exactly disclosed by anyone in the Trump administration. I think they were kind of leaked and went on their own from there. Okay. And so what does Trump do? Or what's he going to do next? Right. Well, I'll tell you what he does after he announces the deal, and after we find out that it's kind of like a really almost total capitulation to the Iranians. What does Trump do? He lashes out at critics of the of the deal, and get this: the last few words in that headline, as details emerge. So I don't sense any voluntary reporting by the Trump administration. And those guys, there's an old saying. Sorry, guys, go. There's an old saying that a fisherman never says his fish stink. Well, I think he can add that to Trump on steroids. I mean, what a worthless guy. But anyway, so he lashes out at critics of the deal. Why? Now, keep in mind, he doesn't dispute the actual details, right? He's lashing out at the people who spoke up. And that's incredibly chilling relative to the First Amendment. I mean, I know people that have refrained from putting things on the net for fear of being targeted or retribution or being found out in some way. So in that regard, Trump's kind of won that First Amendment, and all that means is that he won it back for now. That just means we have to work that much harder to get it back and keep it after November. Okay, and the big deal that Trump's having to face, of course, is to portray his deal as superior to Obama's in 2015. And I'm going to cut to the chase and tell you that it is highly, highly, highly unlikely that the negotiating team for the U.S. of J.D. Vance, Rubio, and who are those other guys? Anyway, he's there. And the big deal is the $300 billion. So Trump denies U.S. to fund $300 billion for Iran rebuilding. Now we don't have to deal in niceties anymore. We kind of know where we are and how we got here, and we know what's got to be done to change it. So anyway, it's almost irrelevant where the money comes from, because they're going to use it to rebuild and increase their military, and $300 billion is a substantial bit more than the Obama deal. But anyway, so of course, no, 300 billion. And it just as an aside matter, it would not be surprised me if Trump cracks up relatively soon. As to the best of my recollection, this is the first time where he's been in public after having made a huge mistake for the world to see. I mean, it was mishandled from the start because he's an incompetent guy, and he hires incompetent people who will do whatever he says, not with complete disregard as to what qualities the job might call for. If you're his guy, you could go from, I don't know, making lousy documentaries like 2,000 Mules from Cash Patel and wind up as head of the FBI. In that America. The truth of the matter is, no, that's corruption. That's Russia. It's fine. That should never be us. So anyway, as the deal's going on, Trump is of course at the G7, and and this is the quote: in an expletive-laden rant, Trump proclaims his deal better than the 2015 Obama deal, and then he goes on. You listen, guys, and then Trump goes on, and you know what the Iranians did? Know what? Well, they laughed at Obama and called him a stupid son of a bitch. Now, I am here to suggest that is not even remotely grounded in fact, and it is a coincidence. I guess be kind of a coincidence. Parallel to this column was the White House memo column from the Times, and their headline was "Struggle to Outdo the Obama Pact." Now, I don't know about you, but I think it's highly, highly unlikely that any negotiating team Trump puts together, especially if it involves Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, um, it's not going to do it. The Iranians are superior negotiators. These two could never extract and I mean, they're horrible. They don't know the subject matter, and the Iranian negotiating team knows it frontwards and backwards. And as you just take a look at him, do you really think that guy's competent in any way to do anything other than maybe watch TV, eat McDonald's cheeseburgers, and throw ketchup bottles at the wall? I think that's about the height of his skills. And I said, why? I kind of get this feeling why Republicans voted that way. And I'm going to quote to you some political advice I'd gotten from Willie Brown, former California State Assembly Speaker, former mayor of San Francisco, just a tough, good old guy. I mean, if Willie likes you, there's nobody better to be around. So, as a matter of fact, it's insinuated that he helped Kamala Harris win the Senate seat from California. Uh, But anyway, and it's a really good thing we have people that will kind of help like that. You know, Kamala Harris was the Attorney General before she ran for the Senate. So anyway, Willie helps her and she makes the Senate. And now I'm going to share with you. And guys, I don't know if you want to wake the kids, phone the neighbors. I don't know who all you want to call from this, but this deserves to be written down for the ages, courtesy of former Mayor Willie Brown, former Assembly Speaker Willie Brown, one of the most brilliant politicians. And he was a real practitioner of the art of politics. But anyway, the political advice that Willie Brown gave me, and that I'm going to pass on to you, is, and I quote, forgive and remember. I mean, doesn't that say it all? I might forgive you for X, Y, and Z, but I'll never forget that. And at some point, you would like to think that either karma or proper courses of action, get the desired results. So, anyway, so can you believe this? I mean, a president of the United States ranting on I don't know if they're on France 24 or what, but he's just ranting about how his deal is so superior to Obama's. And the truth of the matter is, it's not. The truth of the matter is, it is a wildly inferior document. And what happened was just kind of basics. I think Tehran knew the whole time that they could take America's best shot. They might lose a lot of people, they might take buildings, but they're not going anywhere, and they're certainly not going to surrender at the point of a gun. Iranians don't really do that, or at least not willingly. Uh, so they don't, and don't forget that was one of the original demands, right? Unconditional surrender, regime change. Um, anyway, it's exasperating to say the least, but at least we've got a Democracy Radio Network as an aggressively pro-democratic forum to let Democrats speak openly. I invite candidates for local and statewide office, soon to be national office, and at least I don't editorialize too much. I pretty much present people as they are. And well, I want to go back to something from a couple of days ago, and I mentioned it yesterday, and it's dignity and character. There were articles in the New York Times and Financial Times, I think, yesterday, both paralleling the same thing. And we just dignity. What does it mean to be well, we have some sort of feeling what it is to be dignified, and to be upright and proper and all that. And I think dignity, human dignity, kind of suggests not being treated like a piece of dirt, or like one of a few million people who were thrown off the voter rolls, or who had rural health care taken away. So there's a lot of different ways to look at this. Uh, but anyway, the point is, and this was, everybody kind of knew this, but the articulation was today, and only because the time said it. To me, is things might be reported, but if the Times says it's official, it's official. Okay, so then the editorial today, or one of them anyway, was that we just saw the limit to America's military might. We brag all the time about the biggest, baddest army in the world, the biggest, baddest Tomahawk missiles, and everything's got to be the latest and greatest and the best. And there's a downside to that, of course. And the downside of that is those kind of weapons take a lot of money to build, and they're really expensive, or relatively expensive. $30,000 a drone, I guess, would be about right. Um, so what happens, or what happened here, was you had, Trump knew he had to get out. And it's not unlike what they call the bear squeeze on Wall Street. And the bear squeeze on Wall Street is when you're somebody's got to sell. I mean, they've got to cover their margin call, whatever reason, they've got to sell. And this is where the bear squeeze comes in. And you go, no, too much. And he comes down a little bit. Nope, still not going to do it. And at this point, you're getting really into the bear squeeze. But, you see where I'm going with this. So we've got these super destructive weapons that are super expensive that can cross the globe in minutes. And we got beat by a country with drones. We got beat by like Ukraine. Um, Now, nothing would please me more than to see Ukraine bomb the living daylights out of Russia just to forgive and remember. Um, but our military might depends on a almost an outdated model, or a completely outdated model, really. We rely on brute force, huge tanks, super bombers, aircraft carriers. You guys get it. And what do the Iranians have? Drones, missiles, and speedboats. And they held America hostage. It's like the bear squeeze. Trump wants out. Well, we ain't buying. You come back with a better offer, and the offer that the best offer that Trump could put together that they would accept included the $300 billion. And like I said, regardless of who technically pays it, Trump may technically argue that it's not the United States money, it's not taxpayer money. But I think if you look at it, it is taxpayer money, and now he is in just a great situation as far as I'm concerned. He has to defend the indefensible. He has to say that, and ultimately be asked to prove that his agreement is superior to President Obama's. And if I was a betting person, I know which way it would go. But let's just kind of recap a little bit about how we got here, because this is just hugely important. And it may repeat this a lot, but it only because it hurts to say, and I have to hear a lot just to kind of desensitize myself. But the truth of the matter is, we fought a war and lost, or we didn't enter a conflict. We started a war and we lost. We lost to like a C grade power, letter C, not SEA, a C letter person. And you can't. But let's kind of, and so in March, you got Trump coming out and saying, just a couple of weeks after the bombing started, is what's his, we are achieving major strides uh, toward completing military objectives. Sometimes I can't read my own writing. And okay, so that's March. And 3 months later, that would be what? April to May to June. Okay. So here we are in June. And what happens? Where are we 3 months later? We've got 13,000 Americans dead, thousands of Iranians, God only can imagine. And not only the ones we killed, but how about the 5,000 protesters that the Ayatollahs killed before this? At which time, Trump promises help is on the way. And it looks to me as the help Trump has sent or plans to send is it's either Bupkis or Skadookus. Either way, you ain't gonna get many weapons with Bupkis or Skadookus. So let's just assume that's gonna go that he's gonna get Skadookus. And we haven't even taken into account the munitions we've used. Um, God only knows. But like I said, our military is built on weapons that are, like I said, they're expensive to build, and they're a pain in the ass to deliver. I mean, we may have really great bombs and missiles, but it's a pain in the ass to get them there, and it costs time and money, and you know, as Trump stews, we're kind of running out of time. We really, this is a change has got to come, as soon as it can. And in doing so, on wanting that, I'm here to invite every Democrat to give us a call, email about coming on, and let me see if we can't give you some exposure and help you on the way. We don't do gotcha questions. We don't, you know, we're straight up. And what ideally what we're headed for is to be a counterweight to the Fox operation. And on this particular network, we are every bit as friendly to Democrats as can possibly be. We want Democrats, or guys, we got if we don't win, can we? How much more Trump can we stand? And I think the general consensus is probably not very much more. So anyway, so 3 months later, you got 13 Americans dead, a few thousand Iranians. God knows how much ammo cost, and just a little cherry on the top. How about $29 billion of taxpayer money? Oh, that might have just been usable elsewhere. But see, with Trump, suffering's the point. The rationality just kind of goes by the wayside. But the conclusion that is drawn here in June, 4 months after the fact, is that the goals were not met. The theocracy is still there, and they're probably a little more hardline than they were before, right? That doesn't really help much. And how about the stockpile of highly enriched uranium that is so buried they can't get to it yet? But nobody believes, that amount of enriched uranium alone. They're really, trust me, they're going to use it at some point. And maybe it'll be for peaceful purposes. Nothing will please me more. But anyway, the theocracy is still there, is the point, and probably stricter than before. Are they better off or worse off? Well, it looks to me as though they're substantially worse off. And, Trump, we obliterated Iran's military, and we sunk their battleships. And, God knows what the guy's just, a lunatic raving about. But the truth of the matter is that Iran still has pretty good bit of military capability. It's been assessed that they have about 70% of their drones and missiles. So what they've used is, not a third of what they've got. So when the reloading time comes, it's going to be bad. But nobody wants that, unless Tehran knew the whole time that there's going to be a rope a dope, that he was going to have to take the punches. That's Zelensky would have to take the punches and just I'm sorry, the Iranians would have to keep getting the punches and just like the football thing, bend but don't break. And look where we are. So what happened is you have these two guys standing next. Let's assume they're standing next to each other, and they look over and they try to take the measure of the next guy. So I think it's been pretty well proven that, Tehran wants to see how much courage and all that Trump had. And what did they say? How much? Oh, they went looking for courage and dignity and found bone spurs. That's how much courage he has. Bone spurs, while other people's kids are getting killed or even worse, maimed. And I think drafting kids like that indiscriminately and sending them into battle is unbelievably traumatic. And I wouldn't mind if the next war was your robot versus my robot, just to take the human toll out of it. Okay, so anyway, and like I said, Trump asked for unconditional surrender, like Ulysses S. Grant, unconditional surrender. And of course, the obvious question is, oh, come in. Yes, the answer is that there's no unconditional surrender. The unresolved issue of the buried nuclear enriched uranium stockpile That's a huge problem. I mean, that's enough for bombs. That's enough to be really, really destructive. And and the truth of the matter is, we don't, short of a change in theocracy or change in uh, political practice, they're honor bound to kill and destroy Israel. And none of those things that are ancient biblical are ever grounded in anything that's remotely explorable today. So I said Tehran just knew the rope it up. They knew how, and they watch TV like us. They know how unpopular Trump is. They know how unpopular this war is. And just as a surprise, when something is unfavorable to Trump, like the war, do you think the Iranians are going to move to end it or move to kind of keep it going just a little bit longer? Yes, I think that once you have somebody in this bear squeeze that's got to get out, it really only happens on your terms. And usually in those situations, it's really favorable to you. Uh, so, anyway, just a few words about how we blew that. And I says no unconditional surrender, no bomb grade uranium has been accessed. And, we're just, we're up the creek. We are really, really up the creek. That, or as Glenn Tilbrook would say, we're really up the junction. Uh, I said this uranium is like near bomb grade, and it's not like these guys aren't good with missiles and rockets. So, and I mean, one dirty bomb somewhere. How about one dirty bomb in Tel Aviv, or one in Jerusalem in the Knesset? Isn't the Knesset down in Jerusalem? I don't know. Uh, so yeah, can you imagine that? Just one dirty bomb, and we get powerless. How about if it's a dirty bomb in an airplane? And how about your mind just goes nuts with different scenarios. But the one central thing is what Trump got us into this, and he got us into it by listening to Netanyahu. And I get Netanyahu's position. I mean, I understand after losing 6 million community members in World War II, I can imagine how traumatic that must have been, and that anything even remotely close to that might just be too much to handle. And in some ways, I think that immediately after, or when we first started to attack Palestine, or whatever you want to call it, uh, or when Israel first started to attack Palestine, there was some degree of outright the punitive nature of this. Like, we can't believe you guys do this, and we're gonna teach you a lesson, so you will never ever do this again. Not knowing will you never ever do it again, you will certainly never ever think about doing it again. Uh, so, guys, that's where we are. That's where we are. Now there are lessons to be learned, and I always kind of like learning a lesson. And this is, like I said, the big deal is our weaponry. And that phrase asymmetrical warfare, where we have a gajillion Tomahawk rockets that are missiles that are capable of precisely flying through a window and blowing up that house only. Uh, and like I said, and these guys have drones that are really cheap to program, and they use AI to program them these days. Uh, so the weaponry is just, I mean, it's really cool when it goes bang and all that stuff, but it's expensive to make and it takes time to deliver. And not, and that's time assuming it was launched, or it's delivery if you had to jet, not put it on a fighter jet or whatever those guys is. I'm not really into the military stuff, but you can see where this is going. And like I said, the bottom line is, they didn't give up. They got the uranium, and this almost hurts. $300 billion. That's what Trump gave up. I mean, and then he gets ticked when people start analyzing the deal. And I want to kind of go back for a second, something we've been talking about. And I started yesterday talking about dignity and character and all that. And I did that because we had as our guest Ryan Dack, and Ryan is running for South Orange County Community College District trustee. And when he was first elected, I think 2 years ago, he was the youngest trustee ever elected. Not only that, but he teaches high school in Laguna Beach. He rents, so he's really got uh, he really shares our pain, so to speak. And I my thought is that when people at least acknowledge your pain, there's a chance of working with them to make things better. When somebody completely denies the validity of anything you say, think about that. Denies the validity of anything you say. Um, we just it's just horrible. So anyway, and and let's proceed along lines. Let's assume that okay, we used a lot of ammo and all that, and I think we can pay for to re up the armaments. How much do you need? Or not, and not only how much do you need, but this is the crucial part. How long will it take? How long do we have to have our national security interests compromised by your war? And truth of the matter is, we shouldn't have to be compromised at all because they should never have gotten in this fight. And whether Iran was close to a bomb or not, I think the overwhelming weight of the evidence comes down on years of development still. And I say we had the Obama framework involved until Trump comes on and rips it up and then negotiates his own horrendous deal. And it is going to tell you how great it was. By going to this war, we're not going to have a worldwide recession because everyone's going to be making armaments and working for the defense industries. Um, a more dangerous guy just never existed. So anyway, so as it stands now, the way I see it, and the way I think pretty much everybody else sees it, that because the quantity and of ammo and the long range missiles, we're not as ready militarily as we thought we were. Were we, guys? And with the enriched uranium, which is like almost bomb grade as it is, that really leaves us unprepared to deter anybody and to defend against some sophisticated adversaries like maybe Beijing. Don't get if this is what the Iranians can put out, imagine what those guys will do. Um, yeah, it's just a horrible, horrible deal. And we've got a guy who is incapable of admitting a mistake. And so what's he do? He either goes all in or he gets out as soon as he can at any cost. And that's what he did. And you can't be surprised at this. I keep excuse me, talking about credibility, and the word comes from worthy of being believed. And the truth of the matter is he is not worthy of being believed, and it's not something I came up with. It's just the facts. I mean, if you look at what the guy says and how often he says it, you'll know that the Republicans just have it all wrong. And I tell you, before you go further, I want to invite us people to call in if they like 949-629-3820 and let us know your thoughts on the Obama Iranian peace deal. And I'm sure, please God spare me this, but if he tries to use that to get a Nobel Prize, I think that it's clearly 26th Amendment time. I mean, who would not assert that guy was crazy if he saw and if they saw in the Oval Office that he was like doodling with Mickey Mouse in one hand and a Social Security binder in the other. He has no idea, and he's the worst type of human being because he's ignorant and apathetic. He ignores the volumes of evidence, just ignores it. Uh, so God help us, please God help us. And just to show you how everything in the world kind of ties together. And the most common way is like interest rates or commodities or oil, gas, futures, things like that, traded on the commodities board. And if you want to know more about that, send me an email, give me a call. I'll be happy to chat with you about it. Um, but this is it. Falling oil reserves raise the pressure for a peace deal. And just a little byline. Would you believe China is believed to have the world's largest cache of oil? Like maybe a third of all known reserves, supplies. Yeah, that's so. So now you have market forces saying, "Please cut a deal, Donald. This is going to be really bad really quickly." And so, and of course, Trump is just freaked out because if there's one thing we know about Trump, is Trump thinks he is always right, and he will defend that position to his death. And I said the irony behind all this is the people that work around him have to, tell him good things, and otherwise he'll get pissed and fire him. So you have a really interesting bunch of people who are just confronted with a leader who cannot control himself enough to tell the truth. I mean, the whole blame it on Biden, blame it on Obama. No, you will weasel you. We're gonna blame it on you, as it should be. I mean, I just, the Dems weren't in charge of that. You were. So, and don't forget, matter of fact, you were so in charge, you wouldn't even accept Democrat votes, right? And as time goes by, it's just becoming impossible to ignore the uh, the mental problems. I used to say signs of mental decline and all that, but I let's just call it what it is. Okay, the man's 80 years old and he's had a decent physical life, and he's dying. So and one there used to be a show on BBC, Waiting for God, and that's at that point you just kind of waiting, and it's almost as it feels in the states that we have so long to go before the midterms that we're just waiting and hanging. But the way to overcome this is to join your local Democrat club and get out, canvas, be around like-minded people. Don't and you don't necessarily have to refuse to discuss politics. You can bring it up. You're a human being with the First Amendment right to bring up whatever you want. And and if we do it in front of our Trump supporting neighbors, we'll always know that when it comes down to it, those guys are more likely to have me thrown out of here than anything else. So anyway, okay, but back to the New York Times and how this kind of ties together. There weren't, or in the Times business section, the headline was "Falling oil reserves raise pressure for a peace deal." So Trump's really being squeezed here. I mean, everybody wants the war to end, and and you've got these oil reserves that need to be replenished, and Trump can't fill them by force. He can't do anything by force anymore, which was the whole point of the earlier chat. But anyway, so you got oil prices going down, so nobody, which means insurance for the tankers are going down, and the environment has really improved, even though it may not be a huge technical improvement because of the problems that brought it about. Uh, but it is an important accomplishment, and I think we need to be relatively concerned about that. And moving on to the Fed for just a second, uh, Kevin Warsh, he may turn out to be okay. I'm always leery of a Trumpian who comes in and wants change. Change to me is a change. Change to me is like destruction of the office and then filling it in with whoever you want. So, guys, with that in mind, that's and how do you feel about the Trump deal? I mean, give us a call at 949-629-3820 and United at democracyradionetwork.com. We'd love to hear from you. And, it's funny. my mother's side of the family is from Charleston, South Carolina. My dad's side is from Savannah, Georgia. So both little coastal port towns, and port cities and port towns are always a little more liberal, just by the nature of what happens when men get off boats after they've been on for a long time. We might prefer that they go to the library and read, but they're probably at the local strip club, having a beer. And you can't fault them. They've been there for us. So if you want to go have a little fun, have at it, pal. But let's talk about Orange County politics for a little bit now. And Ryan Dack, who came on yesterday, was good enough to let me interview him. And and his analysis was, of course, based on well, actually, he looked at almost every competitive district, and of course, there are wild variations in voter turnout, and the really amazing thing he pointed out was the number of ballots that were submitted that chose not to vote for a particular office. And I think he said the judge races were the ones most often left out, and that's what they call an undercount. So I just thought I'd share that with you. And while we ought to have a fairly decent idea of Trump's tactics going into November. The guy's not subtle. He can't really, excuse me, can't really hide things. And I think this is going to be the beginning of a true mental breakdown. I know lots of people like James Carville are expecting Trump just to walk away after November when he realizes, but that doesn't really help him. That just kind of exposes him to Democrat Congress. Should we take it back? And guys, this as well as I do. If you ain't got any power in Washington, you ain't got any power. And if you ain't got any power, you need it. And that's where we are. We have no power in DC. We may have some representation, but we don't have power. And under the rules of the game, the one that gets to make the rules is the one that wins the election. And think about that. How many thousands of years of tradition did that overturn? People not just serving the next king or the next prince, whatever it is, but how about the notion of people actually putting paper to pen and filling out a ballot, or going to the polling place and registering, and not registering, but casting your vote there. And that's the one thing that distinguishes a democracy from any other form of government: the right to vote. And I had always been of the feeling that because voting is such a huge deal, that it's not unlike the criminal case. And the criminal case I'm talking about is where you can't you just can't let them get away with stuff. You just it just doesn't work. So with the with Donald, no details not disclosed, or like we call him Dozy Donald. As long as he's at the helm, things are going to be horrible. When he leaves, they could be worse. Uh, I kind of see a scenario where if he does walk away, Vance takes the presidency, and who does Vance? I mean, yeah, who does JD Vance appoint as a vice president? Well, I think if it's not Donald Trump Jr., I'm not, I'd be awfully surprised. So this degree of just outright corruption and collusion is staggering to most Americans. I mean, the Italians may be used to it with Berlusconi and all, but we just right now we just suck. And it pains me to say that. It really does. I'd like to think that America is still the shining city on the hill that still attracts the brightest and the best. But at this point, you'd have to argue that Trump chased the brightest and the best people away. He chased people away that were in a position to contribute. And why did he do it? Because he's an idiot. He believes all these wacky theories, and more than likely, the last guy that or last person that speaks is going to be the person that he remembers the most. And you know why? Because he's got the attention span of a pistachio. Is why. If anybody just has an opinion on that, let me know. Give us a call 949-629-3820, and we'd love to hear what your thoughts are on the matter. I personally could rail on and on about Trump for ages. Uh, and maybe I will at some point one day. But for now, the best thing we can do is look beyond him and concentrate on that date, and and keeping Supervisor Foley, Trina Foley, at supervisor for District 5. And as far as other local races go, I know in Costa Mesa, Kara Stewart, I think, is running in District 3. And I'm not really sure how to pronounce this woman's name. But I think it was Angeli Andrade Vallarta, and she's in District 4. And that will leave Kelly Brown in District 5. And I would say that would be a really nice lineup for Costa Mesa, for that part of Orange County to be represented. She's Katrina Foley's been around a while politically, and while she's so an extremely nice and kind person, she's not gonna get walked on. And at least according to my great aunt Rachel, may she rest in peace. If you act like a mat, people will walk on you. So we don't really need doormats right now. So let's put it together and see what we can do. Let's go to those Democrat meetings. Go canvass. Uh, if you can, donate a few bucks, because it's not really about any one or two people doing a lot. It's about a lot of people doing a little to help. And it's funny when you start doing that, you do actually connect on a different level than than just stumbling in and having a beer, or looking for whatever it is you might be looking for. And also, I got to tell you before we go any further, I want to give a huge shout out to a few people. The first one being Anna at Sprouts on 17th Street, who made me the best sandwich yesterday. It was a veggie sandwich. Oh, God, it was good. I have no idea how she does this. It's got to be. It can't be the little bit of mayonnaise and mustard I put on it. She had to have done something, but kind of like vegetables to me. So we're gonna have to wait and be told, or wait and be shown what the deal is if we can't get a sandwich like up to par like that. And and we want to give a shout out to the baristas at Fashion Island, Abby and Prez. Prez is her name was Kennedy, but when she told her name was Kennedy, I'm like, no, we can't do that. No. We're gonna call you Prez. So let's see. We got Abby. We call Ab the Prez. Uh, Maddie, who's just kind of mad. Who else? You know. Anyway, I've learned that a lot of people think nicknames are kind of cool and kind of funny. So if I can come up with a good one, I usually will. I use it, and mm, it's kind of like the little expression: details not disclosed. Sometimes the littlest phrases have the most meaning. Mm. Uh, so, guys, let's get back to Trump for a second, because I mean, he's the topic worldwide. And now he wants credit for ending the Iranian war. I thought that in the back of my mind, he might use this to try to campaign for a Nobel Peace Prize, but I didn't expect the campaign to start like the next day. When we're still yelling about what a bad deal it is. And I said, when he's called upon to defend this thing in public, and he will. As a matter of fact, I hope that the someone in the White House, like Susie Wiles, might encourage him to go on TV and come explain these things as a means to bring his base back into the fold. And in reality, we both know that we hope this fails miserably. Uh, but and that's kind of why I like broadcasting from Newport Beach. And this is the heart of Ruby Red, Orange County. I mean, this place was so conservative, it would astound you. Yeah, everybody thinks California liberal, hippie, sun surf, and all that. It's not. Yeah, it's a little more structured than you would think. Looking at that, uh, I was funny. I was looking at some old pictures from the late '40s, early '50s, I guess, and there were hot rods lined up on the beach with, the guys with their well, I guess that'd be balsa surfboards. I think Redwood probably out by then. They probably went something a little lighter. Uh, but you see, that kind of California dream, that's not here anymore. The new California dream is, of course, substantially different. And instead of being outdoors and having fun like surfing, these days to make you usually have to be inside and slaving away in some way over a laptop or over a legal client or surgeon, whatever it is. So on this a thirsty Thursday, June 18th, I think, let's see, I'm giving a shout out to, oh yeah, I didn't finish the rest of the baristas, did I? Sorry. There's Aleha, and I always thought that was a really pretty name. And there's Gabe, and there's David, and two guys whose names completely escape me. There's Lucinda and Ruby, and I call those two Lou and Rue. And I told Sarah and Rue, I said, you ought to get Lucinda to change her name for Halloween. That way you could be Kanga and Rue. I yeah, I think she got it, but I don't think she's really, really happy to hear it. Uh, so, and we're winding down on the week. Tomorrow's Friday. Let us know what's going on in your life. What are you gonna do for the weekend? You gotta hit the draw. You gonna do any driving? A little road trip involved? And I do have something relatively important to address. My $125 tank full now costs $110. Yeah, I know. That's not exactly good news, but if Trump said it, it would be compared to the second coming, and bringing pizza for everybody. I just don't think that's going to happen. Sorry, guys, I'm a little dry here, and for those of you planning on coming to Newport for the weekend or get a little beach time in, there's a free shuttle that parks and right near Avon Street, about a block off Coast Highway, but kind of behind that where the Holiday Inn Express would be, and you have to enter through I think Tustin Avenue and make a right. But anyway, free parking, and it's a shuttle to and from the peninsula. And I've done that several times. For instance, let's pretend that it's, I don't know, Saturday afternoon about 5 o'clock, and let's presume I just got off the boat and I'm kind of tired, and I just kind of want to drink a celebration beer and go home. But I never thought it was a good idea to leave a bar and then walk to your car and get in it. It just seems a little inviting in case a fine officer of the law sees you. And when I say fine officer of the law, we both kind of chuckle with that. Yeah, I can't tell you how long it took me before I figured out that my granddad really wasn't buying tickets for the policeman's ball. That there was no policeman's ball. It's just kind of like how you shake down the lesser people. The bigger people you can shake down with a little threat, but the little guy, any kind of money helps. Oh God, we're pathetic. And how does everybody feel about Newsom for 2028? Until somebody comes along and attacks Trump either better or more in his face. So far, that's Newsom's good enough for me. And my underlying theory is pretty much any given Democrat, I'll vote for. If you've had a lousy reputation, we'll look twice. Uh, but it's the thing about forgiving your enemies or about praying for your enemies, and all of a sudden I kind of get it. People are, they may have some differences, but as a general proposition, we're pretty much all alike. We're all mammals. We have technically one intake and one exhaust and all that. And sorry, guys, that was kind of cracked me up. But let me get back to talk about credibility for a second. And I said Trump says that we have a deal and it's great. Details not disclosed. So the details get disclosed, and of course he's livid that the deal got exposed, not the terms of the deal where he should be mad, but the fact that it was leaked and all that. Um, I don't know how we recover from this. I have no idea how long it takes. My wager is, geez, 1 to 3 years maybe of solid manufacturing. We might have our arsenal built up. In the meantime, we're just a sitting duck, especially with the Iran having that enriched uranium. But Trump gave all that away and $300 billion. And as astounding as that might sound, uh, the really funny thing is that he's got to sell this thing as being better than Obama's deal. And I listen to people, almost on a T account, go down, point by point by point. And Trump's just a loser. He's a big subhuman being who is the present occupant of the White House. I'm literally to say he won the election because if he can cheat, he will. So you can rest assured there's some cheating in there somewhere. This deal of proving it. And don't forget, way back when, we are set up as one of these countries that was where it was better to let 100 guilty men go free than to have one not guilty person go to jail. Well, guys, I'm going to submit to you that's changed, and people pretty much have taken a lock them up and throw away the key approach. And I got to tell you, it kills me. There's a tremendous waste of decent human beings and all that. And I'm not saying they can be rehabilitated, as rehabilitated means to make new, but I'm thinking that there's got to be a way to have some sort of a work release program where they can have the opportunity to make a few dollars and put it one side so that when they do get out, they're not completely penniless and running around trying to get something. Because when people don't have food to eat and clothes to wear and a place to stay, they can get pretty testy, and they should. And that's a really lousy, uncomfortable position to be in. I completely understand. Upset about this. Uh, and guys, it comes back down to that to think about Jesus. Strange enough, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And I keep thinking that if you had that one rule, just that one rule, commandment, whatever you call it, that you really don't need any of the others, right? I mean, wouldn't that be cool? So we'll kind of leave you with that on a parting thought. But before I go, again, I want to give a shout out to the politicians last night who came to the Costa Mesa Democrat Club, and I really want to thank David Martinez, president of the club. Uh, David always runs, an efficient ship. It may not be the tightest ship. David gives and takes a little bit, and in my book, that's fine. That's exactly how it should be. So anyway, I wanted to call them out and see from Laguna Beach. We want to call out Joan Malzuski and Shaheen. Email me and I'll tell you her last name, who are candidates for the school board in Laguna Beach, I think. And I also want to give a shout out, of course, to Ryan Dag, the high school professor you see at iGrad, uh, the youngest trustee ever to win a seat at the South Orange County Coast Community College District. And I want to kind of stop there for a second because I think community colleges are clearly valuable, and Ryan had mentioned that in some circumstance, the community colleges in Florida are able to award bachelor degrees of some sort instead of the old AA. And there's two kinds of AA, and neither one was usually good for you. Uh, so let's kind of keep this in mind going forward. I don't want to, I never want to try and scare people, but I do always want to remind people how really crucial this is. And, that old story about, the guy, he's, I guess, in Germany, and the German military police, secret police, Gestapo, come for one group and nobody else says anything. They come for another group, nobody says anything. And so they finally come to this guy. And guess what? They came for him. What could he do? Nothing, because they came from everybody else already. He just had his support just stripped away in front of him, and they took him. So to make a long story even longer, have some dignity and think about character when you make a decision, and certainly before you do so in public. Can you imagine the mental toll Trump would have saved by not doing this? I mean, but now you got him, claiming that the war has actually recycled or rejuvenated lots of economies, and that if it wasn't for him, we'd be in a worldwide depression. And I think we're in pretty much a worldwide depression because of him anyway. I mean, he really is a pain who needs to take a hike or take a long walk off short pier, any of those kind of pleasant activities. And something, guys, I I'm, I used to think I could do a whole lot more than I can do, but after about an hour or so of talking, my voice gets like really scratchy, scratchy, and I kind of tend to lose it. So even though if we could, I would carry this on. Was it ad infinitum or ad nauseum or whatever you want to add to it? But guys, I tell you what we're gonna do. We're gonna have to. Is it make like a tree and leave, or should we make like an amoeba and split? But then if we do make like an amoeba and split, we have to make a decision as to whether it's sideways or not. So I think that all things considered, and these days all things considered, and then we're going to go ahead and do what we usually do and try to cut out and save a little bit I have my voice. Thanks everybody for tuning in and watching. Listen, give us a call and email 949-629-3820. Leave a message, and you'll get the name and number at our website, democracyradiionetwork.com. And in the meantime, I said, would you believe did I say in the meantime? In the meantime, this is your somewhat